What's up, guys? Our Thoughts podcast here again. It's your boy Matt on this line, and on the other line,
You got Chesco as always, man. Your two faves, as always.
as the title says, Donda has arrived, and so have our thoughts about Donda. We took a little bit to sit on it. If you want to hear our extended thoughts on Donda, go ahead and click the link in the description below. That'll take you to our live stream, which happens every week at 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. We talk about a whole range of things, but if you want to hear our discussion on Donda and our initial reactions for 30 minutes, go ahead and check out that stream that happened last week. Today we were talking about Donda. Obviously, when you talk about Donda, you have to bring up Certified Lover Boy. Hopefully by the time this video is out, Certified Lover Boy will be dropping tomorrow, or maybe they're out of the same day, but if they are, you'll see a little card that'll pop up where you can watch the Certified Lover Boy review. But
Donda.
So yeah, I mean, I can't believe that we're here, that it's a real thing, that I can open my phone and see a new album on Kanye's Spotify channel.
And even that, it was dropped against his will.
Yeah, his label had to force this album to release. So if they didn't do that, I don't even know if we would be making this video. Yeah, I mean, just kind of going into Donda itself, kind of looking at this album in the context of everything else Kanye has done. Where in your mind does this land in the context of Kanye's career? Does this feel like a culmination? Does this feel like a step down? Like, is this a clean slate? Like, where does Donda fit within Kanye's narrative for you?
I feel like the last two albums prior to Donda, Ye and Jesus is King, as good as they are in what they're trying to be, that was kind of the de-escalation of Kanye, and people who maybe hated on Kanye, that was when they were able to be like, oh, he fell off. But this album, I feel like, was that like... like you said, a culmination of everything. It was this moment where he got to show off a refined version of himself and all the sounds that he's been experimenting with Jesus and, the gospel elements in Jesus King, which we'll get to in a bit. But no, I definitely think that this was kind of like a return to the throne almost. It feels like, I mean, Jay-Z literally says it.
Right.
And yeah, no, I'm very happy with this album. I really enjoy it. I do have some qualms with it, but I don't think that it's anything regarding the quality of music. There's just artistic choices. But no, I really love this album for Kanye.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It felt like a clean slate. It felt like, okay, look at where Kanye has come from. It's all these sounds that he's explored over the past 10 years. This felt like all of those things coming into one place, as if it was a launching pad into whatever is next for Kanye. But with Donda came a lot of moments that people could say the opposite, that could say that Kanye has regressed, that Kanye, he's not even, he doesn't know what he's doing and stuff like that. And you can look towards the list. We literally have a list of controversial moments that came with the Donda release. One, pushed back the release date, I think, about 3 times. The entire live stream events, where we would be hearing different versions of this album. Yeah. And by the time the album came out, we heard it maybe 3 times if you only listen to it through the live streams. Obviously, the whole bringing out DaBaby and Marilyn Manson, to people who have been very in the headlines for very controversial reasons.
Yeah.
UMG, like we said, releasing the album without his approval. Andre 3000, he had a verse on there that was dropped. Soulja Boy's beef, the Drake beef, like so much drama and so much was happening surrounding the album. Do you think that this detracted from the album even before pressing play?
Well, I think part of the Kanye album release whole party phase rollout type deal is the controversial moments. Like, it always seems to be he always seems to be active and out in the spotlight whenever he's dropping an album. You only have to look at Ye and that whole like rollout, when that was the whole Red Cap era. And a lot of them this time around with the Donda rollout was very much blatant attention seeking and not gonna lie, very eye roll inducing, very cringy sometimes. Again, particularly with the DaBaby, Marilyn Manson stuff, that was very contrarian of him. But they can also be kind of artful and interesting. Specifically the listening parties was like a whole experience, and I'll get to that in a second. And it really added to the whole album. But so yeah, no, I'm not here to defend anything that Kanye did, but I will say that besides the Manson Baby Stuff and Andre 3000's song getting cut, I was able to enjoy or not enjoy the album without any of that stuff, the politics weighing on me. Again, other than those two things, I was able to listen to the album and enjoy it for what it was.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, thankfully the album itself doesn't really touch too far into what Kanye was trying to do, especially bringing up, known abusers and stuff like that onto his, literally standing right next to him during his live stream events. Like you said, it got a little bit eye-rolly, a little bit like less nuanced than I thought Kanye was going towards. But in terms of affecting the whole rollout, I felt like it was kind of a blemish in the bigger picture. Whereas, at the end of the day, this album is being talked about. It's still being talked about, and it was the number one thing the day that it had dropped. So for me, some of my favorite tracks on here are, of course, Off the Grid. I mean, the Playboy Cardi, the Fabio Foreign feature, and then also like Kanye's verse on here. I mean, one of his best verses in a while. I mean, best flows, deliveries. Like it's like there's so much that can go wrong with the Kanye verse. Like the mix can be off, the lyrics can be corny, but this was clean. It was hard. It was delivered well. So definitely a huge highlight for me. Another highlight for me, obviously, Hurricane. That Weekend feature is like heavenly,
transcendent. I close my eyes anytime I listen to that, and I'm just like, where am I float whenever I listen to that.
When the choir comes in. This next highlight, I think personally, is my favorite song on the whole thing.
It's definitely in my top 3.
Yeah. I mean, this is a 27 track album, so Believe What I Say, I think is in my opinion, the best song on this album. I think it has everything I love about Kanye. It has an incredible sample, obviously with the Lauryn Hill sample in the back. It has like a good bop to it. It's catchy. It's Kanye singing, which I actually really like Kanye singing on this whole album. I think his performance or his singing voice has improved so much. Every time this song comes on, it just makes you want to like bop your head, and it doesn't matter what the setting is, and that's how you know it's a good song. I believe that it's like one of the more completed tracks on the album, and we'll kind of get into the sound and stuff like that in a second, but definitely one of the more cohesive cuts from the album. Lastly, my last two highlights, definitely 24. Something about the down-pitched choir, that refrain. I'm like, wow, that's something new. Like it sounds even more visceral than Jesus is King. It's like something that I hear in my head over and over, and I'm like, it just makes me want to play the song. And then lastly, Come to Life, probably one of the most incredible songs Kanye has made in the past 3 years, in my opinion. Like this song is an album in and of itself. Like it has a beginning, middle, and end. And the way it transitions into No Child Left Behind, I'm like, oh my God, like I understood. Like this is Donda. This song.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is just a hot take for you. Jail to Praise God, to me, is Kanye's best 5-track run. You know, that includes Hurricane, that includes Off the Grid.
Oh, yeah.
All of that, man. Incredible 5-track run. And then a couple other standouts to me, Junior Watanabe. It's so memorable. It's so, catchy. You just can't. I love the fun records on this album. Like, obviously, there are the dark, there's also the drill stuff. There's the sad stuff, the emotionally climactic moments. But also, there's fun records. Like what you said, Believe What I Say is such a I was not expecting that when that track first came on. I love when rappers get into their just let's do a 10-minute song. We're just rapping. Let's be vulnerable as hell. And that's what they did on Jesus Lord. Jay Electronica, his feature was perfection, in my opinion. You got the locks on there, and in general, if we're just talking about the rest of the features that I happen to like, Baby Keem on Praise God, incredible. He
Definitely.
does that thing where he just doesn't breathe for 20 minutes and raps. Don Toliver on Moon, incredible feature on there, very beautiful. I mentioned Jay Electronica, and then the Griselda presence is really dope. Every one of them got really vulnerable. Yeah. I think Conway the Machine got to talk about when he got shot, and that was really touching to see. And West Side Gun always does his thing. So those are some of the features I enjoyed, and then some of the highlights too. So
I think some of my favorite features, definitely Fabio on Off the Grid. I mean,
Yeah.
He like literally snaps on that beat, and the way that that iconic drill 808, that sliding 808 switches up
Oh.
right when his verse starts. I'm like, yo, like you gotta like get up and like walk
feels,
away.
Like we said with like the stage production, it feels like, you know, the curtains are closed, and all of a sudden spotlights are going everywhere, and then when that slide happens, you know, the curtains
Boom.
open and it's Fabio. It's like,
Yeah.
yo, like this is dope. We're like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, super cool moment. Obviously the Weeknd, I feel like he transformed Hurricane. I've heard that song for maybe 3 years or so. When Yandhi was a thing, and that was a leak. I've heard every iteration of Hurricane, and I feel like the Weeknd finally got it to where it needed to be. So it was just really satisfying, like getting it the right way on Donda. And of course, Playboi Carti, who had 2 features on this album, all were incredible. I think Playboi Carti and Kanye is a collab that has really worked for me, especially on Whole Lotta Red and on these 2 tracks, and then hopefully on whatever is coming with Playboi Carti's next project. I hope I see another Kanye presence on there, because they just work really well together.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of features, but I don't think it detracts from Kanye. I think it feels like Kanye's curating it, like almost like this is like if Kanye decided to do the whole DJ Khaled shit,
but
rap
right way.
as well. The right way. Yeah. And speaking of which, I wanted to hear about what you think of the sound, because it's very, like I mentioned before, it's refined versions of Kanye that we've seen in the past. But yeah, you know, I just wanted to see what you think about just the overall sound kind of landscape that he lays for us on Donda.
I think this aspect of Donda was the part that I struggled the most with, like clicking in my head. You know, I feel like there were so many influences from so many of his past projects that I was like, this feels like an amalgamation of so many different sounds, so many different, you know, sonic motifs and stuff like that. And it does feel like a journey at the end. But what I realized is that every song in and of itself hits differently than the track that it precedes in the track list. It feels like a mosaic of deep emotions, different life experiences, and then like spiritual awakenings, all kind of splattered together to make one nice cohesive painting or sonic landscape, like you said. So this is definitely something that's been a departure from Kanye's past projects. You know, obviously, you know, we look at Ye, we look at his shorter form projects, we look at Kids See Ghosts, or we look at The Life of Pablo and stuff like that. They all kind of fit one cohesive sound, or he kind of stuck to one cohesive lens when going into the entire album, whereas Donda feels like a lifetime of experiences coming into one album, which is what for me makes Donda so desirable, is that it does feel like I'm reaching into different memories, different parts of Kanye's mind. Going more into the sound, like I said, it does feel like a mix of all his projects into one. You know, there are those really minimal and cold beats from The Life of Pablo. There's also really grand and really epic moments, like on My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy. And then obviously the religious influences with the choir and the bars about, you know, Jesus and Christianity and spirituality and stuff like that. But that has been refined to be a little bit more, come from a more like darker and menacing atmosphere, which couples the same atmosphere that I feel on Yeezus. So it's like I can make all these connections, which is why I have to like keep listening to the album, which I think is a testament to like just how good this album sounds together, even though each track alone could stand on any past project from Kanye.
I love what you said about it being presented, the gospel elements being presented in a darker way. And I feel like that makes, when towards the second half of the album, when it feels a little more lighter, you know, it feels more triumphant. It makes you feel that whereas Jesus is King was all climax, it was all hill, but we never got to see the downwards of it, which, you know, I think was your main critique of that album. So I appreciate that he took that note and took it where it needed to be. And on that same note, with every song being different, I think that more often than not, it makes each moment very potent, because that track might be the one time he pulls that trick. You know, you have the Afro beats on Believe What I Say. We mentioned the drill already, and Come Back to Life, obviously, that being that emotional climactic moment. 24, really like going all the way with the choir. And then it also, when he does bring something back, The melody on Hurricane and Moon, the first half, again, like I mentioned, being generally darker than the second half, that also hits you. You notice that stuff because you're like, oh, he doesn't normally bring stuff back, but there it is.
Right.
So again, it just makes everything potent. I just thought this album was interesting because we've seen Kanye prodigies, Tyler, Travis, Chance the Rapper, even Baby Keem. We've seen what they've done with Kanye's sound from all different worlds of albums that he's done. But now we get to see Kanye take things from what he's done in the past after seeing them age, and it doesn't feel like he's trying to recapture the magic. It feels like an evolution of it, which is the best that I can say about any artist that's trying to come back to something that they previously worked on.
Like I mentioned before, how this felt like it lacked in structure, and that was my main critique initially. I rearranged the whole album in a separate playlist to have that arc that I love. I think Kanye is a great storyteller, and he does that in the classic 3 acts. You can look at My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, that kind of goes into his rise and fall into fame, or you can go into The Life of Pablo, which has a little bit deconstructed version of a narrative, but there's still a narrative there. But then even comparing it to The Life of Pablo, Donda is even more disjointed than The Life of Pablo. So it definitely took me a moment to kind of have all the pieces click for me. But I feel like I actually really enjoy the structure of this album, even though I did end up making a separate version so that I can have that arc.
Which we'll link below, by the way. Go check it out. I think it makes more sense. But yeah, as you're saying.
Yeah. So do you think what did you think of the structure of this album? Comparing it to all the other albums that dropped around this time.
How I equate it, it's like if someone gave me a hard drive or a laptop of Kanye's music, and he's like, yo, here you go. But that's the thing. You could make it however you'd like. If you want, you can make it a different playlist, and you can plug the songs at different places. You can take out songs. But however, that just shows, I think the framework for a perfect album is in there somewhere. I think he just didn't have enough time to consolidate and do what he needed to do. But with some rearranging and editing, I think you definitely got a 10 out of 10 in there. Even within the tracks, I think there could have been more editing. Like I mentioned with God Breathe, there's some, the Pop Smoke record, as great as it is hearing Pop Smoke on any record, I think that this felt very tacked on. I think the overall structure of it, I don't think it's the biggest complaint at all. I don't think it's a big complaint, just because I just think Kanye's mind is all over the place, so it kind of makes sense that this album's all over the place.
Right.
And yeah, it's not really the biggest thing for me.
I definitely started to understand the album more, but there are aspects of the album that I know I would want changed. That being definitely some of the mix on some of these tracks, on a lot of these tracks is pretty rough, I would say. Just talking about Kanye's vocals specifically, I can tell when he's recorded one verse in one room and recorded the next verse in a different room, or on a different mic. I mean, this might be a result of moving an entire recording studio into the basement of a stadium. So, this is just the way Kanye works. And I feel like that's why it sounds like the way that it does. So it definitely feels, rough around the edges, it definitely feels a little bit, but I feel like because the structure is so disjointed, like we've been saying, it kind of plays into it a little bit. So it's not too much of a big deal, but I do miss the beautifully produced, Life of Pablo, or My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, or Kid See Ghosts, stuff like that. I wish we could aim towards that in the next project, but I feel like for an album that's an hour and a half long, I'm like, hey, we got 27 new Kanye tracks. I'm fine with it.
I wanted you to answer. What do you think Donda means for Kanye, going forward? What do you think it means, how it reflects him right now? What does this album say about Kanye?
That's definitely the big question, in my opinion, is Donda doesn't feel like the end. I think people always bring up, Kanye, he's getting up there, he's made 10 albums, when is he retiring?
He's got a documentary coming out that's spanning his whole career. So I remember we were like, oh, is that the career?
The end of the career?
Yeah.
Is that how he ends it? But no, I don't think that. I think actually it means the opposite. I think Kanye going into this album, it felt very genuine. Emotionally, it felt like he was actually happy for the first time. I feel like, he was at a really dark place. even going back to Life of Pablo, you know, there are some really vulnerable aspects of that album as well. But here, like his energy, his flows, the concepts, the structures of some of these songs, they all feel really inspired. They all feel like they're like blasting with energy, especially in the more emotional tracks. But at the end of the day, it also just feels like a sigh of relief. It feels like this is something he's been wanting to do his whole career. He wanted to be able to like get to a point where he could do this, to make the tribute to his mom, like, and the ideas he's talking about on this album. There's a lot of depth to what he has to say, because he's gone through a lot just in the past 2 years alone, you know, with the divorce, you know, with Kim, and then the whole, like, you know, the Trump hat era, and the slavery comments, and like it's never ending for Kanye. And I feel like this was him just like letting it all out, just releasing all that energy in the form of this album. And so I'm really glad that we got Donda in the way that it is, this long track list. I really didn't think we were going to get any projects over 30 minutes anymore from Kanye. But because of that, you know, Donda felt like a clean slate. It felt like a culmination of so many years of music that he needed this album to express everything that he's learned all at once. I don't think that Kanye is done. I feel like he's just found this new avenue. It feels like a new beginning for him to explore, you know, as now that he's more of a performance artist, and now that he's getting into this new refined desolate sound that he can kind of build off of. I feel like this is, like I mentioned before, a launching pad into his next step, into a higher version of himself. Obviously, Kanye has been very spiritual but it feels like he had a spiritual awakening during the process of this album. And with that brought new wisdom, a new perspective that I can't wait to see him delve into on his next project. I think with that, Donda is more than just an album. It's more than just the Drake beef. It's more than just the controversial moments. Like, I feel like that Donda was that door that needed to be opened for Kanye to finally reach his higher self, which is super cool, and which is why I connected with it really, really on a personal level. I feel like all of us, you know, we're all trying to be the best version of ourselves. And I feel like seeing someone going through that in a very vulnerable and raw and cathartic way by listening to this album, it made me feel like, oh shit, I can do that too. In my opinion, I do believe that Donda is a 9.5.
Okay.
Because that 0.5 comes out of the mix, I will say. That's like the last cherry on top. It has to sound amazing. But I will give Donda a 9.5 out of 10.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go ahead and give it I'm going to give it an 8.75. I think that I get really specific. If you watch back our reviews, I get like 8.125. I get into the fractions.
We don't round up. We do not round up.
Yeah. It's precise here at the Our Thoughts podcast. In case you're new here, we get really precise with our reviews. But 8.75, I really enjoyed it. I loved it. I think that there are qualms with it, little things that just didn't sit right with me, like in terms of, obviously, like Marilyn Manson stuff, the baby stuff, but in terms of creativity stuff, they're just like you know, it going a little bit too long in certain areas, being long in the tooth, but I understand why, but still it doesn't make it right. But yeah, I love this album. I really do. Every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh yeah, this song's great. Fuck. But no, there you go. We got a 9.5, 8.75. There's our review of Donda. Go ahead, hit the like button, subscribe if you liked our review. If you want to hear more, we, again, like Matt said, we do a stream Thursday, 5 p.m. PST, 8 p.m. EST. Go check out our last couple streams. We've talked about Donda in full depth, Donda versus Certified Lover Boy. If you guys are interested to hear our thoughts on that, we have a review of Certified Lover Boy coming very soon, or coming up right over here. And without further ado, we will see you guys when we see you. Peace.